leadership that is in the room. We have our tribal council here, obviously. You know, they trust me to be able to go out and represent our tribe at different levels of government all the time. And so I thank you for supporting what I do and for doing so much for our community. It's important the stuff that we're doing now. I also wanted to recognize some of our tribal chiefs that are in the room. We have Chief Sheila McCormick from Wabanaki Nations, and with her Vice Chief Karen Hamill. We have Chief William Nicholas from Passamaquoddy Indian Township. And Chief Francis from the Maliseet Nation. I have to look and see who's here. I'm going to ask my tribal council to stand up too. I'm getting looks. Crystal Tucker, Kathy St. John, Beth Ford, Suzanne Desiderio, and we also have our tribal rep to the state legislature, Dr. Brian Reynolds. And beside him, my father, who is the past chief of the Houlton Indian Affairs. Everyone, I swear, and then Ambassador Maliseet from McDonald. So I do want to thank the Alliance. Molly and Zeke have worked really hard, Tony McGrath, and our Joe Sear, who works for us, in trying to get this all set up for everyone. It's been a little bit of planning to take place. I know there are other people, and I feel bad. I'm sorry if I forget somebody. But I want to thank tribal leaders who have stood beside me while we've been at the state and the federal government, and really highlighting the importance of tribal sovereignty, self-determination, and the unique status that we have as tribal nations. I think that that is something that whoever comes into this office as governor, I hope can really understand and honor those things. You've really been working hard. I mean, I think before me, there's been so much foundation that was, or before all of us, a foundation that was really laid. But I think that with the work of the task force, and the governor's office had a seat on that along with others, we've been able to kind of move some things forward. Unfortunately, that means that there's a lot of burden on the tribes to be able to even get those incremental things that really just should be inherent to us as tribes. I'd like to say, I want to say that we're excited to welcome you all of your candidates here to unceded Wabanaki and Maliseet territory. It's our hope that we'll be able to continue working alongside whoever is elected to the office of governor to address local and regional challenges, not only that impact the tribes, but all of the leaders. I don't know if they're here yet, but we do have our Boys and Girls Club that are coming today, and for us, I think when I do work, I think tribal leaders are working, we're thinking about the generations that come after us. If you all been here the next 7 generations, we thought it was really important for our Boys and Girls Club to come tonight. So I know they were in Canada for a Maliseet language forum that was taking place over there. They will be here and they will be asking you questions tonight. So I guess I'll leave you with just this one thing. I think that lasting progress begins with mutual respect and open communication. And I hope that whatever position you're in, whether it's the governor or another, that you will be reminded of that when you're dealing with the tribes. And I think that that's really what's been able to help us have some movement forward in all the stuff that we've been working on for decades here in the state. So thank you all, and I'm going to invite Ryan back up so she can introduce our candidates. Thank you all for making the trip and coming today. I was able to see some of you beforehand, which is great. So, and thanks again to everybody who took the time to come tonight.
Chief. So I am Molly Bryant. I get to be Executive Director of the Wabanaki Alliance, and I get to lead us through the first chunk of this program tonight. Ambassador Crofton McDonald, who is President of our Board of Directors, will lead us through the second chunk, and then we will move on to audience questions, which I would really love to prioritize if there are kids coming. So if I see the kids filing, I might cut it short and move it over to him. So, we invited all of the campaigns, and these are the fine folks who answered our call. So thank you all. They are seated alphabetical by last name, so we will go through introductions, and at the far end, we have our current Secretary of State, Shannon Bellows. And we have Senator Rick Bennett. Next to him, we have John Loa. And then Troy Jackson. Angus King III. We have Darren Lavasser. Hannah Pingree. And Dr. Nirav Shah. We are so appreciative for all of you coming out tonight to listen to these awesome candidates, and we're going to get right into it. We have lots of folks here wanting to share a lot of thoughts, so we try to be efficient with how we're going to do things. We are live streaming this on our Facebook page and Sunlight Media Collective Facebook page, so hello to everyone joining us from afar. So happy you could tune in. We will do round one. These will be 2-minute opening remarks for all. I'm going to ask a couple questions to half of you at a time, just to make sure we cover a variety of things. Then I will turn it over to Ambassador Crofton McDonald for a lightning round. Stress the lightning. So we're looking for kind of shorter, yes, no, maybe unsure things in that round. And then we will go to the audience. And part of the first chunk, we will have a question from the Wabanaki Youth Policy Initiative for all of you to answer. So we'll do that for all the candidates. So we can get going with 2-minute opening statements, and we'll start at the far end with Secretary Bellows.
Thank you, and for the dictionaries, Chief Sabatas, Wilma, thank you to the Wabanaki Alliance. It is an honor to be here at this historic event. My name is Shanna Bellows. I'm currently Maine's Secretary of State, and I'm running for governor because I believe we are in a perilous moment for democracy, for our economy and healthcare and everything we hold dear. And we need strong leadership who will always do the right thing, even when it's hard. And I've been doing hard things my whole life. I grew up in the town of Hancock. I'm a graduate of Ellsworth High School. I'm a carpenter's daughter who grew up in poverty. I didn't have electricity or running water until the 5th grade. That was a great year. I worked my way through high school and college. I served in the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps before going into nonprofit service. I first started learning about tribal sovereignty and historic wrongs done to Wabanaki Nations when I worked for the National American Civil Liberties Union, whose mission is defense of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So when I came home to Maine to be the executive director of the ACLU of Maine in 2005, I sought out Wabanaki leaders to engage in partnership. We worked together on a number of initiatives when I was an advocate on racial profiling, on tribal sovereignty, on religious liberty. And as a state senator, starting in 2016, I served on the Judiciary Committee. I worked with the tribal chiefs and the tribal attorneys to try to pass sovereignty back then. So when I say on day one as governor, I will recognize tribal sovereignty with the governor's bill, it's because I care about this deeply even before I ever ran for office, And that will be the beginning of our journey and our partnership toward healing and restoring historic injustices together.
Hi everyone, my name is Rick Bennett. I have the honor of serving in Western Maine in the state Senate, 14 towns over there. I'm an independent, and I'm running for governor. I'm running for governor because I believe Maine needs a different kind of leadership. A leadership that's grounded in integrity and inclusivity, not ideology. A leadership that unites us all around our shared values, and a leadership with the experience to get things done. I'm running as an independent because I don't believe our next chapter should be written by party bosses in Washington, D.C., or special interests dumping millions of dollars of dark money into our elections. I want to say that I'm really proud to have been recognized by the Wabanaki Alliance in 2023 as a tribal champion. And I just wanted to say that I don't bring that up as a credential. I bring that up because of what they said about how I earned that designation. And I want to read it to you. They said that I researched, that I didn't come to my support lightly. I researched the history, talked to tribal citizens, and gave the issues the respect they deserve. I want you to know that will be exactly my approach as governor of this whole state of Maine. I wanted, and part of that, of course, is that I've been supportive of tribal sovereignty. You know, the bills I've co-sponsored in this session, in the last session, LDs 785 and 395. I'm sure we're going to get into those, but they've taken a turn. But I'm part of that group of fighting for those causes in Washington, in Augusta. I think that Maine needs a governor who's going to focus on actually getting things done, and for me, the parties have become part of the problem. The parties are more interested in creating rifts and divisions and keeping us fighting with each other, rather than realizing we're on a journey together as a community of people, and we need to lean into the better angels of our nature. Kindness, generosity, love should be part of our political dialogue. It shouldn't just be the negative side of humanity. So this is what I am running for and why I hope to be your next governor. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Blow Sr. I live in China, Maine, and I am also an independent candidate for governor. I was born just up the road in Presque Isle in 1953, about 112 years ago. My great-grandfather helped build the Bangor River Railroad in the 19th century, and my grandfather was a potato farmer in Blaine. This is home. I worked for the Maine Department of Environmental Protection for nearly 30 years. Most of that time trying, and I underline the word trying, to do water enforcement. I'm familiar with the issues surrounding the Penobscot River. I'm running for governor because Maine's government is corrupt and rigged to benefit those in power and the favored special interests. I'm trying to build a grassroots movement of people, especially those who have been discriminated against and marginalized. The people have the power, but we must work together to take on the system. No one knows better than Maine's indigenous people what it's like to go up against a corrupt system. Unlike some other candidates, I do not have a large team to do most of the work. I don't have any large donors, which is a good thing. And in fact, my campaign has received less than $250 in contributions so far. So far, I've knocked on well over 1,000 doors to meet people and to ask for the 4,000 signatures I need to get on the November ballot, and I will get on the ballot. Let me close by saying that I'm running for governor of Maine to help those who need it most. The problems the government has created will never be resolved unless the system is reformed. As governor, I'll begin that process. I would add that I have 2 college degrees, one a BS in economics and a master's degree in public administration, and nearly 30 years working in the executive branches of government. So I know how government is supposed to work. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Troy Jackson. I'm a logger from Maliseet, and I was in the legislature for a long time. Last 6 years, I served as Senate President. I got involved in politics because for a long time in my life, I watched people in my community held back by people that had power and influence. I was really young. I saw my dad and other loggers be held up by big landowners that were told if they didn't do dangerously hard work for what they were being paid, that they would be replaced by Canadian workers. And they had no real power to do anything about it. It was a do or go home mentality, which, to be honest, is really still there today. And as an 11-year-old kid, I watched that. I watched it as I stood behind my father, and I never really understood right at the time because I didn't understand wealth inequality. I didn't understand power differentials. But years later, I really understood how that affected me. And when it came time for me to work in the woods like everyone else in my community, then I started really understanding how that affects you. And that's why I ran for the legislature. And I had the real fortune of running for the House of Representatives and being sit in the front row alongside of Don Loring and Fred Moore. I didn't have any idea of what tribes went through. I really didn't understand it at all. But because of fate, I started to understand more and more because of my proximity to them. And since then, I've started really getting a real understanding of the unfairness of tribes here in Maine. And because of that, I was able to rise up in power in the Maine legislature. And even though, I was able to rise in power, we still got blocked by that same power and influence, big money, politics. And my hatred towards that continued to grow. But we tried in 2018, because of Mike Carpenter, that's here from Houlton, Don Bailey, to reopen the 1980 Indian Claim Settlement and work on tribal sovereignty, work on other issues that were important. And you know what happened? That power and influence that I've known since I was a kid, once again blocked, sovereignty. I just blocked it this week once again. And that, just like everything else in my life, has come down to governors that aren't standing up for everyday working class people, aren't standing up for the tribes, aren't standing up for people that I've come to care about. I've certainly seen in my time the unfairness of people with power and influence, but I have never seen the unfairness that the tribes have gone through in this state. And that is why I'm here tonight, and that is why, as governor, I've said on day one, I will give I will give a bill for full tribal sovereignty, because there's nothing hard about this. There's nothing that we have to wait any longer for. This is an easy task that should have been done a long time ago, and I, as governor, will damn well do it.
I'm running because there are two fires burning in our country right now. The first is being set by a corrupt arsonist in Washington, D.C., who is starting wars of choice, giving billionaires tax breaks. He's a paper tiger trying to tear us apart. But there's a second fire where people in Maine, and it's the fear and anxiety that people feel when they cannot afford a house, when they cannot find a doctor, when they have lost their belief in the essential promise of the American dream that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can still get ahead. And unfortunately, the sound and fury of our politics too often just fans those flames instead of putting them out. And meanwhile, people in Maine are falling further and further behind. Housing prices have doubled. Electricity costs have grown at more than twice the national average. Our education scores have gone from best to the bottom. We need to do something different. We need a new and better way. I come to this conversation, though, today filled with both respect for the people in this room and humility about what I do not know. I come with a couple of disadvantages. Number one, I do not have long-standing working relationships with many of the people in this room. Number two, I have a name that carries a little baggage. I understand that. I believe that I can change both. I can't change my name, but hopefully the baggage part I can take care of. I also come with some real sadness about the history that brought us here, but also some real optimism about what I think is possible. There have been some positive steps over time, although they've been halting and intermittent. But I really believe that through honest and thoughtful and respectful dialogue, there's a lot of progress we can make. To get there, I don't believe actually that there is an easy button. I think there's a button that requires real work and requires real sitting down and putting in the time and continuing to develop solutions to some of the challenges ahead. The good news is I've spent my whole life building things, working through challenges with groups of people to get things done. I really believe it's possible. I spent my whole life, whether it's building affordable housing or renewable energy projects in this state and across the country. And the way you do that is by finding your way through the community, finding your way through the common ground, and ultimately getting the job done. That's why I'm running for governor, and I am so grateful to be part of this conversation today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Lavasser, and what got me started here, I guess, in the idea of running for governor, wasn't necessarily because I have any history of any of these great people sitting up here at this table. And I say they're great not because we agree on everything, but that they took the time to be here. I was with most of the people at this table yesterday in another forum, and something that was pointed out today is that all the candidates were invited and only a few showed up. This is a super important meeting in my eyes. I grew up with a family that is Cherokee, and as I look into my ancestry, I'm actually out of the bloodline just by the distance of generations. Something that you guys have that's so beautiful is that you can keep it. You can keep it by a birth certificate, and it doesn't matter the bloodline. So my mother is still considered Cherokee, but I'm outside of that. But I still grew up with that beautiful part, that beautiful heritage of learning about my heritage, about my family. Both the side of the Lavasser, which is very French, and the side of the Weavers, which lead back to the Cherokee. And what a beautiful part that was. And when I was invited here, I'll be honest, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be like a fish out of water. But one thing I can tell you is that there's one thing I'm fighting for, one thing that made me run for office, is this unfairness of DHHS and Mainers' lives. And I know that there's ICWA. And I've learned of this through Amber Tompkins, who's actually part of the Maliseet tribe. And the balance and what's going on and how there's not due process and how there's not any oversight. And there's judgments being made, children being taken from the tribe, children being taken away. And this is the most important thing to me is I will fight for families here in this tribe. I will fight for the families and the children of the state of Maine. We need to keep our families together. And that's part of the reason why I'm fighting. And I'm really hoping that over time, that whether it be ICWA or whether it be DHHS, Child and Family Services, that there be an oversight panel, an oversight committee, ultimately accountability, transparency, because these are our families we're talking about. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to fight, and I'm literally championing the bill. And a whole part of my campaign is to fight for family. And other things that I want to do is to bring sovereignty to what we should have to bring sovereignty to. This is your right, your God-given right, your birthright. And when we're sitting here talking about giving it back, no, we're just going to reward it back, I guess, in a sense. We're going to get the hell out of the way. So good luck to all of you. I hope you guys get some answers tonight, and here's good luck.
Great job. Well, to the chiefs and vice chiefs in Malian, thank you for organizing this. Great to see such a turnout. Again, my name is Hannah Pingree. I'm the mom of 2 teenagers. I have spent nearly 25 years in public service in the state of Maine. I grew up in a very small town, an island off the coast of Rockland, a community of 400 people. And in my small town, everybody has to be engaged for the community work. We all have to rely on our neighbors. And when I think about politics and how we get things done, that is deep in my core about how we need to move forward, especially in this challenging time. So as a 25-year-old, I was elected to the legislature. I spent 8 years there. I was the youngest woman in the country to ever be Speaker of the House. I worked during those years to take on big fights against the chemical companies, work on environmental protection, housing, climate issues. I was the lead co-sponsor of gay marriage. I got term limited when I was 32. I went back home to my hometown. I've run a small business. I've chaired my local school board. And then I had the opportunity to come back into state government. And I got to spend the last 6 years running an office focused on the future issues that are facing the state of Maine. Climate, housing, children's issues, immigrant issues. And during the course of that work, leading the Maine Climate Council, I got to meet this amazing woman here, Maliseet, who was a member of the Maine Climate Council. And together, we did a lot of good work to prepare Maine for the kinds of climate impacts we're already seeing, installing heat pumps, helping people make their homes more energy efficient. During the course of that work, actually Maliseet really started to teach me just that her being a member of the Climate Council didn't exactly make sense. That the tribes and the state government should be having a government-to-government relationship. And that's how we should be doing a whole bunch more work, especially on issues that are of matters to the tribes and to the state. And so out of that, we actually started a new council that does that kind of government-to-government consultation. And it's also out of that work that I began to believe very strongly that tribal sovereignty absolutely has to be a priority of Maine's next governor. Like some folks up here, I have committed the first day I announced I was running for governor to passing tribal sovereignty in my first 100 days in office, but in collaboration and consultation with the tribal nations. We need to do it together. So again, I'm very grateful to have you all here. I'm running for governor because I've learned how to get good things done. I'm also very honest, and I like to do exactly what I say I'm going to do. And so, again, I'm so grateful that you're all here tonight, and I look forward to this conversation.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see everybody, chiefs, Maliseet, all of you. Thank you for joining. I've had the pleasure to work with many of you in this room during a time of Maine's history that was filled with darkness and uncertainty, and yet also filled with opportunity. And we here in Maine are facing a similar time, another time of darkness and uncertainty, but yet also one laden with optimism and possibility. I want to ask everybody for a moment to imagine a world in which Maine's and the Wabanaki tribes were not fighting for sovereignty, but in fact already had sovereignty. In that world, childhood poverty rates among tribal children would not be 3 to 5 times higher than they are for children in the rest of the state. In that world, economic growth since 1989 would be much closer to the national tribal average of 61%, not the 9% that it has been for the tribal nations here. And in that world, Wabanaki Nations would be leading on the creation of renewable energy, not having been stymied by the state of Maine for so many decades. That world was possible, and it remains within reach. The one priority that has been at the top of the Wabanaki Nations, as you all very well know, has been the right to inherent self-determination and sovereignty. And as governor, I will grant that right so that you all can continue to thrive, not through the permission of the state, but as a right to self-determination of yourselves. That is what we owe each other in this moment, and that is the opportunity that we have in front of us. You have my word as governor that we will work toward that goal as fast as practical, and that between now and January of 2027, we will take time to lay the necessary groundwork. So when that sovereignty is granted, it is real and actionable on day one, and so that all of the issues that we must think through now are thought through, so that the true right to self-determination can be realized on day one. Thank you all very much.
to thank you for those wonderful opening statements. We will do closing statements. Those will be a minute. And then we are keeping time. I didn't feel right stopping you because I didn't talk about the process because there wasn't really one. So Sage Phyllis, part of our team here at Wabanaki Nations, she'll be timekeeper. If I look at Sage when she puts her hand up to me, you'll probably hit time, but yeah, so we'll go from there. And then I want to recognize the rest of our Wabanaki Nations team. We have Monica Castellanos, our Associate Director, and Toby McGrath in the back, all helping so much for this. All right, so this first question, and I'm going to drop titles. As hard as that is for me, I'm going to use your names. So, you know, in politics, we get into these titles. So we're going to do names. So the first question will be for, and I'll remind you of the order as we go, Rick Bennett, John Glow, Angus King, and Hannah Pingree. And I'll remind you who's next after we go. And we want to keep responses to about a minute, but it's a pretty meaty question. So, just a warning. The 1980 Settlement Act has a unique provision, one that none of the other federally recognized tribes must abide by. The tribal nations in Maine must explicitly be written into federal legislation that benefits federally recognized tribes. Since 1980, the Wabanaki Nations have been left out of over 150 federal laws that other tribal nations across the United States have access to. During the 131st legislature, LD 2004 would have fixed this problem. This bill had overwhelming bipartisan support in both the Senate, with a 26-8 vote in favor, and the House with a vote of 100 to 47. Unfortunately, Governor Mills vetoed the legislation, and the House was unable to override her veto. The question, would you support legislation that would retroactively and prospectively allow the tribes in Maine to access all federal Indian laws that we have been shut out of for 46 years? Why or why not? And we will start with Rick Bennett.
Thank you for the question, Molly. And I'm happy to get the question because, as you know, I actually co-sponsored that legislation in 2004. I've also co-sponsored a similar piece of legislation before this current legislature. You know, others have spoken about this, and I only have a minute, so I just have to say that it's a simple reason. I mean, why would anybody who lives in this state of Maine, in state government or the federal government, oppose fair and equitable treatment of the federally recognized tribes that are within our state borders, while all these other tribes, 500 and some odd across the country, have availed themselves of benefits of that. So yes, retrospectively, yes, prospectively, I've read on this, I've testified on these bills in the legislature, in the committee, and spoken on the floor of the Senate, calling upon my colleagues to pass this bill. They heard, the governor did not. I will sign that bill, and I look forward to being your governor to do that. Thank you.
I would say yes, and there are a million reasons why. But basically, I think we're all equal. We should all be treated equal. And we need a government that does that.
I essentially agree, but I have just one nuance I would add. In a lot of conversations that I've tried to have to understand this more clearly as to sort of the why has this taken so long, my understanding is that there are some sort of weird quirks of federal law and state law and tribal law that make some things where you actually wouldn't want them to apply, and so you have to adjust that way. And my understanding is that there are actually negotiations happening right now between the state of Maine and the Wabanaki Alliance to try and solve this challenge. I have not been part of those conversations, so I don't know. But clearly the word affect state law was way too broad and incorrect. And I think any kind of process solution that's going to ultimately make sure that we can solve this problem is one that I would support. So again, I'm not in the conversations, I'm not in the negotiation, but from conversations that I've had with people who have been in those conversations, they feel like there's a close solution at hand that would make sure that we could solve this problem going forward. And I hope that they're absolutely right, and I hope that there's a way we can get there.
support both the prospective and the retrospective application. And I think the exact number is there are 570 tribes, other tribal nations who have access to this law, and the 4 who don't are here. So obviously, Narab actually talked about the Harvard study and the economic impact of the tribes, the tribal nations not having access here in the state of Maine, and we know just how much of an economic detriment that has been since 1980. It's significant. So as governor, I would work to implement that law as soon as possible. I think you all have heard that it is currently stalled in the Maine State Legislature, is unlikely to pass. But they are passing some sort of study, which hopefully means that when the new governor takes office on day one, they can implement that law immediately. I actually had the opportunity to talk to Chief Sabatis today, and there is so much that has gone missing. I mean, I would just say having the tribe have to work with DHHS on child welfare issues, having so many funds flowing first through the state of Maine. That has been a long-standing detriment, both to the tribes but also to the state. We had a conversation about the economic opportunity that Maine has missed by not having access to these funds. So this is another day one priority, and thank you for the question.
Thank you all. This next question will be for Shanna Bellows, Troy Jackson, Derek Lavasser, and Nirav Shaw. I didn't even have to remind the first group about the order, so let's see if we can be that good. The federal government provides direct funding to the other federally recognized tribal governments across the country. These funds are for, but not limited to, education, healthcare, economic development, energy, etc. But here in Maine, that is not the case. For instance, healthcare funds flow through the Maine state government from the federal government. The state takes a portion of the funds for the tribes and uses them for the state general fund purposes. Would you commit that your administration would provide the full federal funding that comes to the state for tribes and not take a portion of those funds to fill state budget holes? Why or why not? We'll start with Shannon.
Yes, and my answer to the prior question is yes, full stop. Because it's the right thing to do, because it will be good for tribal people. It will also be good for non-Indigenous people. We see that with the work of Wabanaki Public Health and Wellness, who does such great work in recovery and wellness for tribal people, for Indigenous people, but also it benefits non-Indigenous people as well. Tribal sovereignty will be good for Maine's tribal nations. It will also be good for Maine. It will bring economic development. It will bring healthcare. It will bring environmental protections. And I am passionate about this.
To the question of allowing the money to come directly to the tribes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially where other states or the other tribes get it directly from the federal government. I mean, I would want to work exactly the same way. I don't have issues with any one person that is working in DHHS or anything like that, but clearly we have problems with DHHS. I would feel much more comfortable with the money being flowing directly to the tribes anyways. And like Shanna on the other question, I mean, tribal sovereignty, clearly there's one reason why we don't have tribal sovereignty after 8 years in the state, and that'll be ending soon. And that's a good thing, because it should have happened by now. I don't really understand why we have to wait any amount of time. The work's been put into it. We know what we have to do. I mean, every other state in the nation has figured out how to do this. And a lot of people have put a lot of work into this already. It's there. The roadmap is there. We just need the political will to go ahead and do it. And I think the big problem is that, again, there's money and power and influence that are holding back tribal sovereignty in this state. And that is something that upsets me greatly. And so we should have everyone here that's running for governor feel like Well, tell the tribes that they're going to do this on day one.
So like in my opening statement, the reason why I'm fighting for DHHS oversight is you've probably all seen in the news, there's plenty of fraud, there's plenty of things going on, talking about the children and stuff like that. We know the Maine state government hasn't done good for anybody. So yes, 100%. And here's the other part. I mean, if you guys are looking to adopt anybody, I'm in. Because I can tell you that I'm not proud of the way the Maine state government's been run my entire lifetime. I'm 51 years old, and I am not proud of the way it's been run. I'm not proud of the divisive politics, and that's why I'm running as an independent. And I truly do think that we need more freedom and liberty for the individual. And yeah, I'm not a polished politician, but I'll fight as help. Thank you.
The answer is yes. Without hesitation, I would restore the ability of the Wabanaki Nations to get the full funding that they deserve from the federal government. And that's because it's fundamentally about parity. Every other tribal government in the country can benefit from that full funding, then the Wabanaki Nation should as well. But I want to take a step back just a little bit. Although there are hopeful signs of progress on this front and other fronts, progress should not be taken as a substitute for full tribal sovereignty. And indeed, the way that we should be moving forward here is not by rights that are conditional upon state permission, but rather rights that are unconditioned and actually respect the sovereignty that you have. Right now, the way that the funding is working, it's a little bit like an ice cube that's moving through the day on a hot summer, and a little bit melts at each and every stop. And by the time that it lands at its final destination, to help Wabanaki people in Maine, only a fraction of that original ice cube is left. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way it is elsewhere in this country, and that's not how it will be when I'm governor.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think I'm going to depart a little bit from these questions because we have quite a bit to get through. And I'm going to bring our youth representative up here because this question will be for all the candidates, and I want to make sure we get good responses on the youth question. We've covered sovereignty quite a bit. Thank you all. So I will bring up Maliseet Brown, who is working with our Wabanaki Youth Policy Initiative with a question for all of you.
Hello, my name is Maliseet Brown, and I'm a proud member of the Passamaquoddy tribe at Wabanaki Group. Maine led the way with the Wabanaki Studies Bill in 2001. Since then, many other states have passed similar laws and have created teams to support their own Department of Education as well, as students and educators across their state. Currently, there is one person within the Maine DOE doing the work of these teams. Many students across Maine still graduate without ever learning about our people. Wabanaki translates to people of the dawn, or people of the first light. We are the first to see the sun each day, and we carry the responsibility of holding up the sky. Yet our histories, cultures, and identities are still not consistently taught in the very place we have always called home. Our history matters, and the truth of this land matters. We have always been here, and we will always be here. There have been efforts to erase us and to silence us, but those efforts have never succeeded. Every student in the state of Maine should be required to learn the truth about the land that they live on. This is not just an oversight, it is a failure to fully honor our people and the true history of our Wabanaki homelands. More than 2 decades later, LD 1474 is not asking for something new, it's asking for Maine to follow through. This bill would provide the support educators need, ensure accurate and meaningful curriculum, and bring Wabanaki voices into classrooms across the state. It is a necessary step for the future of Maine. Only a small portion of funding remains to make this possible. The foundation is already there. The question is not whether the state of Maine is able to do this, it is whether the state of Maine is willing to do this. Will you support all students and teachers across the state by properly funding a Wabanaki Studies team at the Department of Education? Lastly, I will add, the truth does not disappear, and neither do our people. Every day, the first light still rises, and so do we. Thank you.
And that is for everyone, so why don't we start at this end and work our way that way?
Great. What a wonderful question. So thank you for raising that, Malia. The answer is yes. I would absolutely support a fully funded team of folks within DOE who are helping and advising school districts across the state of Maine to actually implement what has been on the books for so long. It should not be the case that the history you learn in Maine, the history of the Wabanaki people, is determined by the zip code that you happen to be in. The law is very clear. It should be uniformly taught, and the fact that it is not is yet another indictment of the failings of our education system, and, dare I say, an approach that is probably rooted in some desire to erase history rather than relive and respect it. As governor, I will reverse that trend. Thank you.
Great question, well said. I'm a mom of a 13 and 14-year-old, and both of my kids go to a public school, that has taught Wabanaki studies in a really quality way. And they have learned from the one amazing educator at the Department of Education who is an absolute rock star running this program all on her own. So I absolutely would support fully funding this program so that it could be robustly and uniformly taught in every school in the state of Maine. I hope we all agree. This is really important. It's important for my kids, and it's important for all the other kids to come.
I think education, heritage, culture, they're all super important things. And what they do is our past teach us a lot about who we were, who we've become. And one of the things I can tell you is America, the state of Maine, in so many ways, we made a lot of mistakes, at least our ancestors did, right? And we've come a long way. And we continue to try to right the ship where we wrong people so often. But this, to me, is something that kind of got lost in the mix. And I'm sorry to every single person, whether it be here tonight, this outside of here, but this is something that we actually even have to discuss. In such a society where education is everywhere, we have it at our fingertips. So, of course, I would absolutely help pay for the education of this. And I don't know much about the program behind it, but I would make sure that this is there, because this is just common sense. It's really just who people are. And we have so much history, so many holidays, so many things to protect certain things and certain education. We have, whether it's, we have Martin Luther King Day. We have all these different holidays that we celebrate, so we recognize a movement. And this is so important that we actually work to make sure that everyone has their liberty, everybody has their freedom, and truly the government gets out of the way.
Again, a great question. Thank you for that. I completely agree. There's a proud culture and heritage and history in our state of the Wabanaki Nation. There's also a fairly shameful component of that history, and I think it's critical that every Maine child understands that history. It is something that it's the only way that you move forward is by understanding what happened before. And this law has been on the books for a while. We need to fund it. We need to get the curriculum completed. We need to continue to get it out into teachers' hands and ultimately into our kids' heads. And finally, ideally, into their hearts. I think there's work to do, but I'm optimistic about what we can do, because I think everyone on this stage is going to say, yes, it's what we're going to do. And I'm pretty darn hopeful that someone on this stage is going to be the next one.
This is something I talk about quite a bit. It's not just the bills that I believe would have been really good for the state that's been vetoed by the current and the former governor, but it's the bills that have been passed over the last 10 or 15 years that have not been enforced. A lot of good legislation that I believe would help, that could help working class people across the state that just aren't being enforced. And it's hard to explain to people when I was in the legislature, when you go back home, why is this piece of legislation that you touted or you talked to people about that did get passed? Why is the state not following through with this? Why is it not implementing it? Why is it not happening? And that's incredibly hard to explain to people why that's not going forward. I mean, I can't give a good reason for it, other than, bureaucrats don't want to go forward and do these things for a whole bunch of different reasons. And here's an example, obviously, of something that is very important, and I agree with a whole lot. I mean, we're in a time right now. We actually passed a law to, take the Columbus Day and make it, Native American Day holiday. That was a tremendous battle. I mean, people went, crazy about it. And now Donald Trump is turning it back around, and people are falling back on that trap. I mean, as foolish as it was, I, debated Bobby Charles a couple of weeks ago because, he's targeting black and brown people across the state, and people that don't remember how bad it was in this country, in this state, for Franco-Americans, are falling into that trap. I mean, so yes, we need education. I mean, when I read Colin Woodard's, articles in the Portland Press Herald about the Passamaquoddy, I mean, I was shocked. I mean, I almost cried. I probably did. But that type of history should be taught to everyone so they can understand how bad things were in the state at one time and how we should never go back to that time.
I didn't say it before, but it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to see so many folks here who are so interested in good government. I'm not a politician. I'll kind of be brief and to the point. Troy didn't say the word, but I'll say the word. Maine state government is an absolute disaster. You folks have no idea how bad it is. I worked in it for almost 30 years. You don't know 99.9% of what goes on. So if you think it's bad, it's a lot worse than you even think it is. This issue is simply just one more example of very, very, very poor governance on part of our state. I would take this one step further. I think we can do better than just educating folks about Wabanakis. I think we need to start working together, start playing together, and start sharing instead of just you be on that side and I'll be on that side. So we're all in this together, guys. Okay, so I think we need to work together, and I think we need to strengthen that law.
The answer to the question is yes. I want to say this, though. It's sad that we even need the law. In the late 1970s, my dad is the first in our family to go to college. He eventually got a PhD, went into education and taught at schools. And in the late 1970s, he wrote the Maine Studies curriculum, K through 12, which was disseminated across the state. And part of that was he personally wrote a textbook on Maine history for middle schoolers. And he wanted to do it differently. This was in the late 1970s. The Indian Lands Claim was an issue. And he went to the tribes. He went to the tribal councils and he said, I want you to be part of this book. You need to be. This is your history. This is your culture. And a committee was formed. Andrew Baird Nicholas was hired to help him and write those sections of the book in consultation with the councils. And 3 of those chapters in that book, a textbook that was taught for years in Maine in the 80s and 90s, called Derigo, were written by tribal council members about Wabanaki culture and history. That's the way to do this. And this just says that we need to be vigilant, because this issue's come back around again. It'll come back around again in 20 more years if we solve it now. So we need to understand that this is part of our history too. The way we educate ourselves, the way we address our cultures and our communities working together. So I know I'm short on time. I just want to say this. When I got reelected to the Senate after a long break in 2020 and the sovereignty issues came up, I went back to my dad's textbook written in 1979. And I took those 3 chapters and I made PDFs from them. And first of all, I read them and internalized them, and they're amazing, and still very relevant today, and I'll make copies and send them to anybody interested. But I sent copies of those 3 chapters to my colleagues in the Senate, so they could re-engage with history themselves and see that this is possible. It's already been done. It shouldn't require law. It should just be the way it is. Under my governorship, it will.
Yes, and I want to thank the Wabanaki Policy Youth Initiative members who met with me earlier this year. And I took time out to go to the Wabanaki Alliance's press conference and to hear the youth talk about this bill and talk about the other priorities. And I think it's really important that the next governor show up not just to speak, but to listen and to hear. And I think youth need to be part of the next governor's cabinet and will be part and leadership. And I think Wabanaki tribal leaders need to be part of the next governor's cabinet and administration. Because I think it's about partnership. I think it's about working together. Also, we may not need a law, but we sure do need funding, and budgets are moral documents. So the real key with the Wabanaki studies is making sure that we provide funding for Wabanaki educators to work directly on the ground with school districts across the state to make sure that it happens, not just at the Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you all, and that ends round 1. We're chugging along. And one of the questions we didn't quite get to was about where you need more education or outreach around Wabanaki tribal sovereignty, and the Wabanaki Alliance wants to be a really useful resource to all of you, so please stay in touch with us. So I will call up Ambassador Crofton McDonald. He's so good, he's already on his way. And I'll talk through some logistics. So after Ambassador does his round with you all, we will go to audience questions. And the way we'll do that is Ambassador will call on folks. He will lead into this next session, and then we will go to folks. And folks in the audience, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and we'll try to get to you. We'll do as many as we can. Please say your name and where you're from and who you would like your question to go to, and we'll work through them as we get them. And then after that, the responses to that should be about 30 seconds if we can to the audience questions. I know that's tough. And then we'll do some closing statements and bring Chief Sabatis back up for a closing, and she can explain the beautiful gifts to you as well at the end. So, Ambassador.
Sorry about that. Moving on. This next section is the lightning round. We will be going through, I mean, there are 13 questions here with the expectation of a yes, no, or maybe response. And I will read off the question, I'll begin at the end, and move this way. Question number 1. As governor, will you submit on behalf of the tribes the sovereignty legislation that has been before the legislature for the past 3 legislative sessions?
Yes.
Indeed, yes.
I'll say no, but I need to say that because it is so complex that I think we need to sit down with the tribes. The new governor will need to sit down with the tribes and make sure that it meets all of the requirements that will satisfy everyone.
Yes, I mean, and John wouldn't know this, and that's okay, but I mean, we did sit down with the tribes. I mean, the tribes actually hammered this out with the task force. I feel very comfortable that all the tribes know what this legislation has in it, and so that's why I'm a very strong yes on this.
I think there's some great pieces of that legislation. I think there are also some challenges that, as John said, require some more work. And that's all. And I see it as complex. And anytime you're going to have government-to-government relations, especially across multiple borders. I think there's just work to do, and I am excited to do that work, to do that learning, and to spend that time, but I would not submit the legislation as it currently exists.
I think what Angus just said is probably a lot of where I stand. Is I want a fresh set of eyes. I'm the only person that's sitting up here on this panel that has never served in politics at all, or doesn't have family, hasn't served for the government. I'm sorry, I wasn't picking on anybody. He's got a great dad. Like, I'm not picking on anybody. And not that he's not great either. Listen, I'm sitting around some amazing people. I'm not picking on them, but I'm just saying I use a fresh set of eyes. I think we need more common sense. I think we need more unity in politics. And we don't need to be picking each other apart. We need to be picking people up. And that's what I'm running for. And I really think that's what I want to do. When I take this bill, I take a fresh set of eyes. I would look at it. I would ask you, because I don't know the needs of the tribes. And I really would require your services. I would meet with the chief. I would meet with everyone on the team and focus again, make sure it was laser pointed to what you guys needed, and we get that bill passed. Because this is not just about passing a bill or getting votes for an election. This is a right.
Yes.
Yes, without equivocation or hesitation.
Thank you. Question number 2. House Republican leader Billy Bob Buckingham passed legislation that would not allow the state of Maine to take tribal lands by eminent domain. Other states elsewhere in the country do not have the power of eminent domain over tribal lands. Here in Maine, the legislation passed, but Governor Mills vetoed it. If this legislation reaches your desk as governor, would you sign it? How do we start from this end?
I do not believe that the state of Maine, once we have full tribal sovereignty in place, the state of Maine should not have the power of eminent domain over tribal lands.
Yes.
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 I have to say I didn't fully understand the question, but since these guys said yes, I'll say yes.
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 Question number 3. Would you hire qualified tribal citizens to hold a high-level position like commissioner, deputy commissioner, or senior advisor as part of your administration?
Yes, definitely.
I would welcome it with eagerly.
Can you please repeat the question?
Would you hire qualified tribal citizens to hold a high-level position like commissioner, deputy commissioner, or senior advisor as part of your administration?
I would say yes, but I also want to say that I pledge to appoint at least one person of color in my cabinet. I believe that would be the first one, certainly in recent history.
Yes, I have my eyes on some already.
Yes, I think the dialogue is critical, and having someone in the governor's office is a really important piece of how that dialogue happens.
And yes, because I believe it's important to make sure we have representation from every aspect of Maine.
Absolutely yes.
Yes, I did it at Maine CDC and would do it again.
Question 4. Legislation was passed recently saying the governor and tribal chiefs would meet annually. Up to this point, the meeting has only taken place in Augusta. Would you commit to conducting this meeting annually between the tribal nations and the governor?
Yes, at a location of the tribe's choosing.
Great answer. Sammy's hand.
I heard most of it, so yes, I agree. I missed one part. Can you say the first sentence? The very last part of the first sentence was hard to hear.
Absolutely. I'll repeat the whole question. Legislation was passed recently saying the governor and tribal chiefs should meet annually. Up to this point, the meeting has only taken place in Augusta. Would you commit to conducting this meeting annually between the tribal nations and the governor?
Yes, and I also believe the governor should be traveling at least to meet with tribal leaders, at least once a year. I know the governor gets busy, but at least once a year. But the store should be open.
You bet, absolutely. And again, look at the people who are here. You came here today, and there are other people who are not here today. For what it's worth, I hope someone at this table is your next governor.
Yes, I've been meeting with all of you pretty consistently anyways, and I have to drive by all the tribes on my way home anyways. So it's not a problem. I'll meet with you every week.
Yes, my family has a camp on East Grand Lake, and you're all welcome.
I'm going to stand up for this one because the answer is yes, but I'll also show up when the tribal chieftains are invited to address the Maine legislature.
Yes, and I think it's really important to echo the others that the governors show up when invited and be present for really important tribal events and tribal territories, and to be in partnership always. And I've been showing up as secretary, and I'm really proud that this is not my first time here visiting Houlton Band and Maliseet.
That leads us to the next question. March 16th, 2023 was a historic day. It was the first time all 4 tribal nations were invited by the legislature for the State of the Tribes. All 5 tribal chiefs spoke to the joint session of the legislature. The governor opted not to attend. As governor, if the legislature holds another State of the Tribes, would you make it a priority to attend the event?
Yes, I've been there before. I'll be there in the future.
I think I just answered that question. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I presided over that. And obviously, Speaker Talbot Ross put a lot of effort into that. I mean, it was a big deal. I was very honored. I was proud to be there, and obviously I would be as governor also.
That's a big moment for the state, and the governor should be there.
It's definitely a big moment, but more importantly, what it shows is the disconnect. It shows that when it's such a prioritized day and somebody puts it off for something else, I don't think there's any reason the government should have been there.
Yes.
Yes, and Ambassador, let's recognize that this question and your last question are about the bare minimum, but let's aspire to something a lot more than just the bare minimum. Let's try to have something more than just showing up, and that's what we'll do as governor.
In 2019, a bipartisan task force on changes to the Maine Indian Claims Settlement Implementing Act was created. The task force, comprised of legislators, tribal members, the AG's office, and executive branch, spent copious months and hours reviewing the Settlement Act. These next litany of questions are based on the consensus recommendations from that task force. These questions are all in reference to amending and modernizing the Maine Implementing Act. Would you support changes to the Maine Implementing Act to recognize federal law regarding the exclusive jurisdiction of tribal governments to regulate hunting and fishing by tribal citizens on tribal lands?
Yes.
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 Maybe.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you support amending the Maine Implementing Act to restore and affirm the exclusive jurisdiction of tribes to regulate fishing and hunting by non-tribal citizens on tribal lands?
Yes.
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 Would you support restoring the tribal nation's rights to regulate natural resources and land use on tribal land to the fullest extent allowed under federal Indian law?
Yes. Without that, sovereignty means nothing.
Yes.
I hate to agree with Dr. Shaw, but yes.
Yeah, maybe. There are a lot of details there.
And not because of Angus, but here's the rub right here is why this has been in trouble. The Forest Cross Council does not want tribal sovereignty, and that's why this has been a challenge. That money and power and influence that I talk about, this is why this has been held up time and time again. Yes.
I'm going to take 5 minutes to answer this question because you took 5 minutes. Troy's absolutely right. Maine Forest Products Council is one of those big money folks that influence how our government works and doesn't work. And that's all I have to say on that. And that's one reason why I run for governor, because of people. We need to have a government for people, of by and for the people, not the big businesses.
Since others are going on, I'm just going to say yes. But it's 7 years since that task force put out its unanimous recommendations. And okay, maybe a little disagreement about some of the details, but 7 years? These guys are right. There's a lot of powerful interests trying to thwart this, but that was a good-willed effort by the people of the state of Maine, including tribal people, and it should have been enacted, and I co-sponsored the bill to do so.
Yes, I co-sponsored that bill, voted for that bill, fought for that bill.
Would you support recognizing federal law providing that tribal nations, tribal citizens, and tribal entities are not subject to state and local sales taxation on tribal lands?
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to get a chance to vote on that, apparently.
Yes.
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 Would you support rendering the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act applicable in Maine?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you say regulating? I'm sorry, I'm actually hard of hearing. A lot of people don't know that. You have a good bassy voice, and it's really hard for me. I'm sorry, it's not good to me.
I will repeat the question. Would you support rendering the Federal Indian Gaming Regulatory Act applicable in Maine?
Yes.
My inclination is yes, although to be candid, I actually haven't studied enough to have a full.
Yes.
Yes, because it's extremely important for the tribes to be economically self-sufficient and spread their wings and do the best they can, because like I say, we're all equal and we should all have an equal chance.
Up to a point, one of the areas that I've disagreed with the Wabanaki Alliance on, and they all know it, is on gambling. I've never supported the expansion of gaming in Maine in any way, and including the state lottery. Just, if I could, I just want to say LD 1164 was recently enacted, and I know some tribal members have asked me about this. I spoke against it, opposed it, but I will, as governor, honor it. I think once it's settled law here, and people have built expectations around it, it's important to keep it law, and I will do so.
Yes.
Would you support restoring to the tribal nations the exclusive authority to exercise civil legislative jurisdiction over tribal citizens and non-tribal citizens on tribal lands?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I will go a lot farther than that in my closing remarks.
Yes.
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 Would you support restoring to the tribal nations the exclusive authority to exercise civil adjudicatory jurisdiction over tribal citizens and non-tribal citizens on tribal land?
Yes.
Yes.
Sovereign, yes.
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 This is our final question. Would you recognize the ability of all Maine tribes to acquire trust land in accordance with their settlement acts and federal laws like the Indian Reorganization Act and its implementing regulations?
Yes.
Yes. Definitely.
Definitely.
Maybe. Again, I think there's some complexity there. In general, I'm absolutely for it. I just would want to make sure I don't commit to something that leads to an unintended consequence that I personally don't foresee.
And I have to agree with that, because I need to know more. I guess I'm not that informed on the last part of the bill. When the first part of the question, I was 100% yes. It's just understanding the rest of the bill. But I mean, I'm leaning towards yes just simply because if it's about sovereignty, I want to make sure that that's the end result.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We will now move on to our third round, which is questions from the audience. Yes, so why don't we invite, if anyone has a question, please raise your hand and we'll try to get the mic to you.
Youth.
Oh, yes, we'll take some questions from the youth first.
What opportunities will you create for Indigenous youth to be leaders in our communities?
The questions begin from this end.
Okay, what a wonderful question. What was your name? Camden, that is such a great question. The answer is every opportunity that you could possibly imagine. As governor, I will try to remove every single roadblock that Indigenous youth face right now and make sure that you have the same opportunities as any other kid in Maine, any other kid in the country. Literally, the sky is the limit, and as governor, I'll try to help you and all of your friends get there.
Great question. Did you have fun in Canada today? Yeah, great. Well, I love the question, and I love the leadership that you guys are already providing. You were standing up at a forum with a bunch of people running for governor. So honestly, I think you should be running for political office. I think young people today are feeling pretty depressed about the state of the world. And I think it's really important that young people, young women, see future leaders in themselves, both running businesses, being governor of the state of Maine, being a tribal chief. So, as the good doctor said next to me, I would do everything in my power to be sure that you had a great education and you had all the opportunity in front of you.
So to me, education, freedom, liberty, everything should be your gift. It should be a gift. It's part of our youth. It's such a beautiful thing about being young, is the sky should be the limit. Whether being an astronaut, whatever it is that you dream of. And you know, like, I think of my little boy wanting to be a police officer, firefighter, and just the different things. I mean, at 4 years old, he thought he was Spider-Man. So, like, you know, but it's the dream. And you should never have anything challenge your dreams. None of you. And that's the greatest thing about America, and that's what it should be. But too many times, government does get in the way. We're going to do our best to keep it out of your way. And we're going to give you every opportunity that we can. And what a blessing you are. Camden, right? You're already a leader, Camden. God bless you.
Camden, I'll give you my seat right here. Look, I agree with everything that everyone said. When I was about your age, I got to go to Augusta, and I got to sit in the governor's chair. And there's still a picture somewhere in my mom's closet, I'm sure, of that day. And today, here I am in front of you in this room, trying to get that very same chair and sit in it most other days. And so I would want to create that same opportunity for you and for your friends today to come to Augusta, to be part of it, and see what happens there, because ultimately all of the work that gets done there is for you. All of the work around how do we preserve our environment, how do we help support culture, how do we help make sure that our education system is teaching everybody what they need about our state, That is all for you and your friends. And I think there are also plenty of other opportunities for you to engage and lead, but as everyone said, as you're the first kid who asked the question today, I'm not worried about your leadership skills. You're going to be in fine shape.
Camden, my youngest son's name's Camden. And I think, much like Angus said, what I've tried to do in my time in Augusta was bring people down, especially from here in Mercer County, because it is such a long ways from Augusta. A lot of people haven't had a chance to go, and for a lot of people that are everyday working class people, they don't believe that Augusta's for them. You know, they don't think that it's possible. I know I didn't think it was possible for me. And what I like to do is make sure that everyone knows that Augusta is not a place that you can't go to. You can't be, that you're very much welcome there. That no one in the state shouldn't feel like they can represent their area. They shouldn't feel like they don't belong there, because every one of us is as good as anyone else there. And it's very important to me to make sure that people know that nobody has any other right to be there. If you want to be the representative, if you want to go there and fight for your community, if you want to go there and fight for your family, you should be showing up there and doing that. And so for me, making sure that young people have that knowledge early is important, because I was 30 years old before I ever stepped foot in Augusta.
How old are you? 10, okay. When I was 15, I was the youngest government official in the state of Connecticut. Okay? I want to see you beat that record. Here in Maine. I think the biggest problem as far as opportunity for kids is education. And what we want to try to do, Camden, is give you the best teachers that we possibly can. And give you the best education that we possibly can. Okay? And also, I think mentors are really, really important. A mentor is somebody who's going to work with you and your fellow students to make sure that you learn the most that you can, and that you're exposed to all kinds of different things in the world, and to help you decide how far you want to go. Okay? I finished my schooling when I was almost 50 years old. You're never too young to learn, and you're never too old to learn. And I know you're going to do great. Okay? Okay, good.
Camden, I've heard the word fight a lot here tonight and there is the element of struggle and challenge and fighting. But leadership, in my view, is about moving past that and finding and building on areas of common ground, because in my experience, most people want the best thing, and they disagree on the outcomes. But I think finding that common ground it's a big challenge in today's world. And the best thing to be in leading is to think about that and to find those elements where you can bring people together and harness collective energy collaboratively to get really big, important things done.
Camden, that's an awesome question, and thank you. When I was your age, I still was living in a house with an outhouse. We didn't have electricity, and I never thought I'd be running for governor back then. So a couple things. One, I want you to come to the governor's house when I'm living there, because I think the governor's house should be the people's house. As secretary, I have job shadow Tuesday. I invite young people to come shadow me for the day. Every Tuesday that the legislature is in session. And as governor, I want youth to feel like they can show up. And I'd like you to make a list, all of you, of what you would like to see happen. Because sometimes kids have the best ideas. When I was a state senator, kids in my district came to me about school-based health centers. And I invited them to come to the legislature and testify. And together we saved school-based health centers in our district. So that's the type of ideas that I like to listen to. And finally, I think that one of the things that's a real challenge is money for our teachers. So our teachers are making enough money for our schools, and money for the Boys and Girls Club, so we have strong after-school programs. I used to work in an after-school program, and I think it really matters. So thank you.
Okay, if there's anyone in the audience who would like to raise a question, please raise your hand. Okay, no one in there? Oh, okay, Vice Chief, if you'd like.
My name is Teresita Hamill. I am the Wabanaki Nation Vice Chief. You've all expressed, for the most part, that sovereignty is a day one kind of bill, for the most part, and we understand that. I just want to tone in a little bit more on something else, because once the Native peoples, the Wabanaki people of this state, have their sovereignty, what we decide to govern will be our choice as a people. So my question, on a state level, and my love for the land that I walk on, I understand the increase in electricity and heating and all of those things. And this is for any one of you that's willing to answer the question. Offshore wind was taken off the table. I want to know your guys' feelings, any one of you in particular, don't matter, on how offshore wind is affecting our marine resources off of our state lands, and your opinion on it. Thank you.
I just want to say that I strongly oppose offshore wind. I don't think we need it, and I don't want to see our oceans despoiled, our views despoiled, and potentially the environment harmed as a result. I am an environmentalist, and I've always been an environmentalist. I do very strongly support other forms of energy production, wind, water power, non-dam water power, and I think there's a tremendous new technologies out there for wind power that aren't going to chop up birds. They're not going to look really unsightly. Some of them look like trees. So I support wind. I support all kinds of renewable energy, as long as it's properly sited, and as long as there is any environmental harm is minimized.
So the offshore wind was taken off the table, obviously, by Donald Trump. But before it was taken off the table, there were some people that wanted to put it in the middle of fishing grounds, in particular LMA1. And I didn't think that was appropriate. I feel very strongly about our fishing industry. I think that that's something that has to be protected. I mean, I'm okay with offshore wind if it's done right. And so my belief was that we had to figure out a way to come up with offshore wind, because it felt like it was going to happen one way or the other. And we only had the ability to control it 3 miles out as a state. So I brought the environmental community in, I brought the fishing community in, I brought the labor community in, and come up with a plan to keep it 40 miles out. And we would pay for the extra cost as a state if BOEM would agree to it. A lot of people said that it was a fool's errand. But when BOEM actually came out with their leases, all of their leases were outside that 40-mile area. Now, it doesn't matter now, because obviously Trump has blocked it, but the roadmap is there because it will come back around. I mean, there's no doubt about it that people will want to do it in the future. But I think we've set the standard about how to protect fishing grounds and keep offshore wind outside of that. Now, I will say, and it's very important here where we are right now, we do have a chance, and obviously these communities here in Southern Rustic are going to play a big part with the Rustic transmission line. King Pine, EDP Renewables, so 3 wind farms are sited right here. And this wind is going to be something that the rest of New England wants. And is going to demand because it's some of the cheapest power, renewable power that you can get in New England. And we have a real chance, if the communities here are wanted, not only I believe that PUC has done wrong by putting out an RFP that sells the power or lets other states buy the power at the same price as Maine, but we should be actually selling this power to these other states if we want to allow it here. Selling that power so we can lower our energy rates here in Maine. And this is something that here in this community, you're going to see it very much. And I think that, you know, this community could profit very much about, you know, getting property tax rebates and things like that. And this is going to come to you very quickly. So keep it high on your radar.
I just need to respond to that since Troy brought it up. I'm 100% opposed to turning the North Main Woods into a big park. And as long as I'm governor, it's not going to happen.
As Troy mentioned, unfortunately the president has killed all offshore wind across this country right now. He's even tried to kill projects that are 95% of the way complete. And that's going to have a huge impact on New England's energy mix going forward. I don't agree with the president, but that's not going to surprise you on just about anything. I've spent my life building renewable energy. I built some in Maine. I built a project in Clinton where we took dairy farmers and community leaders and clean energy advocates and a few thousand cows, and we took something that they had a lot of, manure, and turned it into something that we all need, renewable energy. And today that project in Clinton is heating thousands of homes and factories. It created some good jobs. It's lowering emissions for all of us. And it did it without adding costs to Maine families. I think that's a great project. I'm very proud of the work and the team and what we built there. And I also spent a lot of my time building solar and wind projects. So I know not only how to get it done, but I know how very hard it is, and often how hard we make it to do sometimes here in Maine. Offshore wind is about 50% of the plan for Maine's energy future right now. And so if we don't have more offshore wind, and the president has not only killed it for today, but he's killed it probably for the next decade, we are going to need to come up with a lot of other alternatives. We have increasing energy demands, and energy has to be reliable, lower cost, and lower carbon. As Troy mentioned, northern Maine is the cheapest, fastest source of energy in all of New England. Everyone in New England is going to need that energy, and we should make darn sure that Maine gets the best results from that it comes and helps Maine ratepayers, it helps Maine workers, it helps our state in first versus the rest of New England. I think we can do it, but we've got to make sure we're thoughtful about it. Again, I've spent my career building renewable energy projects. I know how complicated it is, but I also know that it's possible, and I'm excited to help contribute to Maine's energy future.
It's something, honestly, I don't know enough about. I would, as soon as I'm elected governor, I'm going to call Angus and ask him to come visit. Give me a little more insight. Honestly, we all have our strengths, and we, I think it's definitely a strength of Angus is sitting there listening to him talk about it. It's definitely in his wheelhouse. So I would definitely need to, become more informed, get more knowledge of the matter, and see what was going to work best. But it sounds like he's got a good grasp on it.
Thank you, Vice Chief Hamill, for the question. It's a good one, and I think the siting of offshore wind, as people have said, is not likely to happen in the immediate future because of Donald Trump. I think it's way, way out. But I think it does need to be done in consultation with tribal governments, and I don't think that happened in an adequate way as it was considered over the last couple of years during the prior administration. I'd say probably more importantly, Maine imports about $4 billion a year of fossil fuels. And we see right now what's happening with this war in Iran. We see what happens with natural gas prices spiking for a war in Ukraine for all variety of reasons. So the opportunity for Maine to be energy independent and save our climate is an opportunity that I think we all probably would like to see make happen, especially if we can provide lower cost, clean power for people in Maine and the kind of jobs that it will also bring. The Aroostook County Wind Project is a huge opportunity that the next governor will need to make happen and need to ensure that it does provide community benefit to the northern part of the state. It's really crucial that as those companies show up to build these big wind projects, that people here see the jobs, they see property tax benefits, and they see lower cost power. You have to demand that. So I think it's really important that the next governor think about the future of our energy markets. We all see what's happening today with our bills. And I think this is an opportunity for Maine that we shouldn't screw up.
Great. Vice Chief, again, thank you for that question as well. And I think your question points out this tension between needing to move toward more renewable sources of energy while simultaneously bringing down the rates of our electricity. I'm a supporter of offshore wind and believe it can very much be done without conflicting or adversely affecting the lobster industry or fishing industries. My principle is that climate policy must not adversely affect the very coastal communities that it's designed to help. And I think we can very much do both. Let me also say that although it's the case that Donald Trump has taken a wrecking ball to many of these plans, that will not be the case forever. So Maine has an opportunity to start laying the groundwork now so that when this current administration is not in office, we can pick right back up and move as quickly as possible. That doesn't just involve constructing turbines. It also involves developing port infrastructure so that when other offshore wind projects across the eastern seaboard want to get started, they can launch from here in Maine and provide the jobs that would be necessary.
And that's another Since the request was for anybody who wanted, and John reached out, here we are.
I'll just say I agree with Troy. I think this is an area where I support offshore wind if it doesn't disrupt our fishing heritage. And this is where I think the state has really erred, right? The state has left Wabanaki Nations outside of decision-making for energy projects, for Juniper Ridge, for environmental issues. And the tribal nations are leaders in preserving our fishing and hunting heritage and leaders in protecting our environment and our climate. You look at the Passamaquoddy project to install solar panels on residences in Passamaquoddy land, and because of lack of sovereignty, that was stopped and delayed. That is wrong. So you can count on me when I'm governor to make sure that Wabanaki Nations are at the table in my administration and in this planning so that we're doing it in partnership, not to you or to our waters, and with devastating potential consequences.
Okay, everybody else answered that one. I'll just take a little bit of a different spin. I agree with what Shannon said fundamentally. I think there's an opportunity right now for energy. Southern New England needs Maine energy. And we need to do a better job negotiating good deals for all Maine people on getting that energy there. You know, it's not uncommon in other places with First Nations, British Columbia, Alberta, across large bits of Canada, California, and the Navajo are part of energy generation systems. And I would commit to this. I actually will be proposing a Maine Generation Authority because I think that Maine needs to take charge. I think for too long we've given stuff away to our southern neighbors and they've freely taken it. And energy is one of those things. We've seen that with the New England Clean Energy Corridor from CMP in Western Maine. We've seen it on a host of things. We need to negotiate better deals for all Maine people, and part of that is thinking about generation and actually negotiating good deals around getting that power to the people who need it, and make sure Maine people, all Maine people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, are part of that. And I would welcome the conversation with the Wabanakis about how to build in to the Maine Generation Authority ownership so that it can uplift everybody's votes.
So now we're getting some plans on the table, which is great. But I just got to say though, I mean, because the thing about it is that the thing with the fishing industry was that windmills would have been in the fishing industry, and Trump taking the wrecking ball, he has, but the wrecking ball was there before Trump. It would have been in the Mills administration if we hadn't stopped it. And that's what's really important to me, is that we need a governor that's actually going to stand up for the fishing industry and stand up for working class people. And that's what we did. With the Wabanaki, we need to make sure that they're at the table, on Sears Island. They weren't consulted on that. I mean, we need people that are at the table all the time fighting for their interests.
Thanks to all the candidates. That one question took longer than expected. We would like to transition now to an opportunity for closing remarks. Maybe we can start at the far end and move this up.
And you want to stay right now, right?
Well, it's 2 minutes for this one. 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay.
2 to 20 minutes.
Well, thank you again. Thank you to the Wabanaki Policy Youth Initiative. Thank you to the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you to the Wabanaki Alliance. Thank you to the Chiefs. Thank you to Houlton and Maliseet for hosting us. Ambassador Malian. This has been a tremendous evening, and deeply appreciate this opportunity. As Maine's next governor, I want to walk with you. On day one, we'll start with recognition. Not granting, not giving, recognizing tribal sovereignty. And then work from there on a journey to improve economic development, healthcare, environmental protection in this place that we all love, this unceded territory of the Wabanaki. I'm not part of the Mills administration. The Secretary of State is elected by the legislature. So I stand in a unique position. I work with Republicans, Democrats, and independents to get things done. I ran on a platform of modernizing elections in the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. In elections, we implemented automatic voter registration so you could register at the BMV. We implemented appointments at the BMV. We implemented online services, online voter registration. I was able to save money in that department and improve customer service. That's what I want to do as your next governor. I've got a reputation for standing up to Donald Trump and fighting right now in court to protect voter data of all Mainers. Because when Trump's DOJ came for it, I said, go jump in the Gulf of Maine. But then I organized other secretaries of state across the country to join me. And now more than 24 states, Democrats and Republicans, are standing up and joining that fight. And you know, when I stood up to Trump, I've been doxxed, I've been swatted, I've gotten death threats, I've been sued, and I've never backed down. Some folks say I'm too nice to be governor, but I am tough. But I'm also good at listening and being with folks in community. In good times, like when I run the Maliseet Half Marathon with Team Wabanaki, I've done that for a number of years, and in hard times, in those tough negotiations, to try to improve, to make life better for every single person in the state, no matter who you are or where you come from. Thank you very much.
Again, a heartfelt thank you to the organizers, the Wabanaki Alliance, all of you. Thanks for showing up. I mean, this is what we're doing. We all want this office. You guys are here because you care. You care about the future of your communities, of your state, of your country. Thank you. It's heartening and heartwarming to see the turnout. You know, a lot of words get said at forums like these. I want to leave you with something simple. Tribal sovereignty is not a courtesy that Maine extends. It is a right that was taken and never fully restored. As governor, I will show up. I will attend the formal addresses by tribal leaders to the legislature. I will engage with all of you before decisions are made, not after. I'll push to amend the Maine Implementing Act, drafted with the tribal nations, not handed to them. I'll pursue joint working groups on land, natural resources, economic development, environmental protection, real partnerships, not press releases to pat myself on the back. The 1980 Settlement Acts created a structure that I believe holds the Wabanaki Nations back. But that ripples throughout all of Maine. It affects the people I currently represent in Western Maine, the Oxford Hills. It's good to roll that back to, because it's good for everybody across the state, whether it's here in Worcester County, in Oxford County, York County, and everywhere in between. I've spent 40 years in public life, nearly. I know how to get things done. And I know that the biggest things get done when you build real relationships, when you keep your word and you show up. So, a couple of minor things. I'm running as an independent, which means I haven't yet turned in my signatures. And I would be grateful if you would consider signing my petitions today. Sarah Nichols in the back, wave hand, Sarah. If you could go see her and sign a petition, I'd be grateful to get help with her help getting me on the ballot. And I would encourage you to look at my website, which is bennettforgovernor.com, 2 N's, 2 T's, for more information. And you can learn more about my positions on a variety of issues, because I really would love to involve all of you, not only in this campaign, but in the governing as well. Thank you so much.
I need people to know that I am definitely not a politician. I served you in the executive branch of state government for almost 30 years as a public servant. And I don't think Maine needs a politician to blame us. I think Maine needs a public servant, somebody's going to lead. We've had enough politicians to blame us and see where we are. Shortly after the November election, I hope to meet with tribal representatives at a location of their choosing. Because for me personally, the issues in tribal sovereignty legislation are too many and too complex for me to just submit any bill that has been drafted. I believe we need to sit down face to face, people to people, as equals, to develop or amend legislation to resolve our differences as quickly and as smoothly as possible. As I understand it, sovereignty is the right to govern yourselves, which I fully support. But as governor, I will also support the concept of decolonization. Decolonization can include reclaiming land, cultural revitalization, structural change to include economic, educational, and legal systems, educational reform, and building an equitable relationship between indigenous and non-indigenous people. The concept of decolonization is growing across Canada right now, and I think it's going to be time for it here before too long. There's a great deal of healing left to be done that I believe must be done before we can all truly move on. As a person, I have great respect of and support for all indigenous peoples around the globe. As governor of Maine, I will make every effort to resolve our differences permanently and fairly. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I have enjoyed being here tonight, and I definitely appreciate everyone that put this together. Some of you know me, the others that don't. I hope you've gotten a little bit of understanding. I'm just an everyday, person. I've come out of nowhere. I'm in a small town, Allagash. There's like 200 people there. And I think most people see me as someone that probably should never get into politics. And probably never should have gotten into this position, and certainly probably never should have run for governor. But I am determined to break up the status quo in the state. I don't like the way the system has gone for everyday people, and I was part of it. I've passed a bunch of bills. I've passed bills for universal school meals. I've passed bills for child care. I've passed so many things I can't even remember. But on the really big things like prescription drugs, tribal sovereignty, a whole bunch of things, non-disclosure agreements for people. When it really got hard, governors, blocked me. And that's why I decided that, to really make transformative changes, it had to be, governor had to step up, somebody had to step up, and I decided it had to be me because I don't believe anyone else has a sense of urgency for everyday people like I do. And in this, race, I've come to understand what tribal sovereignty means for people that have been left behind way longer than anyone I've ever understood. And I've understood being left behind, personally. And so that's what this is really meant to me, is being a part of a change for you. Just being a part of it, to try and make your lives better, because it would mean something to me to be part of that. And I want to make that change because you deserve it. And that's all I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to, be a god, be a hero or anything like that. I really, really believe that you've been left behind and done wrong, and you deserve better. And that's all I want to do is make your lives better, because I know what it's like. And I really appreciate your opportunity. I honestly appreciate everything that the tribes have done with me. I appreciate the knowledge. I appreciate the friendship. So thank you.
I have a vision to build more affordable housing and renewable energy across this country. I did not spend a lot of time writing reports or fighting over policy. What I did was I grabbed some people, I went out into the world, and I got it built. Importantly, what I did not do is spend time trying to demonize or destroy the people who disagree. I didn't get off a lot of zingers, but what I did was I sat down and I listened. And I talked with them, and we worked through it. And so we, again, didn't score a lot of points in those discussions, but at the end of the day, instead, thousands of people have a new roof over their heads, and thousands more have clean energy in their homes. And I will take that trade every single day. I think we can do things in a different and fundamentally decent way in our state. And I think it starts with applying some common sense on the common ground that we all share, and then being able to listen, being able to have a bias for action, and then knowing how to get things done, be accountable for the dollars and the results. That's how I built affordable housing. That's how I built renewable energy. That's how I'll be as governor. And look, everyone may not agree with me 100% of the time. Ed Koch used to say, if you agree with me 80% of the time, vote for me. If you agree with me 100% of the time, see your therapist. But I'm reminded of my old friend George Smith, who one time someone walked up to George, you may remember him, he was the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine director for a while, and someone walked up to George and said, George, I think you and I disagree about 90% of the way the world works. And George, without skipping a beat, said, well, then let's get to work on the 10%. And they did, and they got something done. And then they got more done, and more done, and more done. And I think that gives us some direction in this divided moment of how we're actually going to get things done. So I end tonight the same way I started, full of curiosity, full of humility about what I do not know, and full of energy about continuing this conversation, working with all of you in this room and all of the people that you represent, and making sure that we can build better lives for everybody in our state. I'll close with a quote from the remonstrance that I read a little while ago that said, if, in endeavoring to make amends, our heart is in the right place, let us refocus our efforts on initiatives that can create real, tangible progress for the living. That's what I want to do, and that's what I'm committed to do as governor. Thank you.
So I think sometimes when we come to a forum like this, we hear a lot of the same things. And one of the things I kind of want to point out about myself, and the reason why this is so important, is I think of Amber Tompkins, and the reason why I really want to speak the most about tonight. And I want to be Amber's voice when there's injustices, as well as I want to be the voice for all of you, the injustices that have happened with allowing all the Alliance to have its sovereign rights, to be sovereign from the state of Maine. So when you think of Amber, and I don't know if Amber's here. Amber, you still here? Raise your hand, because I really can't see that well. Oh, good, right there. So I do want everyone to understand that Amber has a grandchild that she's trying to fight for. And there's been some false accusations against her and her family. And even though those false accusations have been proven, truly proven, testified to in court, she still doesn't have rights to her grandchild. So I'd rather stand up and fight for the individual than pretend I can fight for everybody all at once. But by standing for one person, I'm standing for every one of you. And that's why it's so important that we stand together, that we allow that there be oversight of government agencies that oversee our families. So that's what I'm fighting for. That's why I think it's so important that we don't have a politician. We have someone who's kind of pissed off, kind of upset, but they can actually sit down and listen to people. So even though I'm upset, and even though I've had injustices in my own life, I'm still calm enough to sit down and listen to people. And I'm going to fight and make those changes. Not fight against the people that think differently. I want to listen. And I'm so grateful for Amber. And one thing I want to tell you right now is I have some of the greatest people with me up here. And I have Ryan Michaels, who's over here, has been taking photos all night and really just helping us trying to document, because this is kind of a historic event. To have an opportunity to speak to such amazing people, to sit around with a bunch of people who care this much. And I don't agree with everything of every one of them, I can tell you right now. But I would shake their hand, I would hug them, and I'd pull them out of the mud, and I know they'd probably throw me in the mud. But no, I mean, they'd pull me out of the mud, right? All I'm saying is we need more unity. We don't have to agree on everything. But let's sit down, let's be calm, let's show love, compassion, empathy, and get things done. But Megan, Callan, just being here tonight, I'm collecting signatures of me today in the cold, people telling us that, you know, I don't even want to say the word, but go away. Some people being super excited that I'm running as an independent. So if you would see Ryan, Megan, or you know, anyone here on my team comes to me, I would love your signature because I'm an independent. Sign Rick's, sign John's. We're still running out there collecting signatures. At least give us a voice. Let us fight for the things that we have. I hope someone on this panel here today wins. I really do. And I hope for your sake that you're at least part of that process. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless you all.
You've almost made it to the end. There's one more. Well, thank you all. Thanks again to the Wabanaki Alliance and to everybody who showed up, to the chiefs for being here, to the tribal councils. It's a real honor to speak to you tonight. And I just want to say, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the times that we are in. And I think you all know just how important a time it is. I think you understand that governors in this country right now are literally on the front lines of protecting our democracy, protecting women's rights, the rights of LGBT people, the rights of women, the rights of tribal nations, the rights of immigrants. Because I think you all know exactly how we are all under attack. And when I travel around the state of Maine, people want somebody who will stand up to this president, who will stand up for the people, who will stand up for our democracy. But they also want hope and optimism in our future. As I travel around the state of Maine, people say, I want to make sure that my kid could actually afford to buy a house here in the state, that they can have a decent school, quality health care that they can actually afford, especially in our rural areas, that we can actually stand up for our environment and protect our climate, that we can actually get good things done for the people of Maine. So I've spent almost 25 years in public service, serving my state, serving my community, because I care deeply about the future of our state. I care deeply about Camden and his friends, and my two kids who are 13 and 14. Actually, my daughter's turning 15 tomorrow. I think we all know that Maine could have a very bright future, but the future would be much brighter if we can partner with the Wabanaki Nations and advance sovereignty. So, as your next governor, I see a new dawn in our relations. And I thank you so much for educating me, Molly and Bryant. I thank you to the chiefs who spent the time talking to me. And I think you all know there are very, very important elections coming up. Many of us are running in a primary on June 9th. Both Democrats and independents can vote in that primary. I would be honored by your vote, and I thank you all for being here tonight.
I pledge to limit my 2 minutes of closing remarks to no more than 10 minutes. There's an old saying that if you want to walk fast, then walk alone. But if you want to walk far, then walk together. And what has happened over the last 46 years is that Maine as a state has walked fast, but in so doing, it has left the Wabanaki people behind. Your health, the health of your children, your economic vitality, your environment have all suffered as a result of the state of Maine deciding to walk fast. My pledge to you is that as governor, we will restore the true government-to-government relationship so that the Wabanaki people can walk not behind the state of Maine, but shoulder to shoulder. And together, and with me as your governor, we will together walk far. Thank you all very much.
I'd like to invite Chief Sabatis back up for closing remarks.
I'm instructed that I have 2 minutes. No, I'll keep it brief. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to come tonight. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for questions from the audience, but I really appreciate all the candidates. Thank you for your campaigns that you're running, and for your compassion and your commitment to the state of Maine. It takes a lot, I know, to run for office, and it can be really tough sometimes. So I appreciate all of you and your willingness to step out front, and sometimes you can take a beating. But we appreciate you in making the drive. I know a lot of people had a long ways to go. Some didn't so far, but it was a really great night. I hope you enjoy your gifts. When we're trying to decide what to do, these dictionaries, they've been hard to come by for a while. And they just came out with another edition that included the second one, so it's Passamaquoddy Maliseet dictionary. And so I hope you enjoyed those gifts. A little bit of our community to take back with you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone, tribal leadership, the Alliance, and everyone involved with this happening, for everyone who attended tonight. So have a good evening. Safe travels.
One request. If you guys up front are okay, the youth would like to get a picture with you. Okay.